Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. Okay, well, the Preds played last night. Oh, what a game. What a game. And until like 3 minutes to go, it looked great. Vancouver was playing, I'm not exactly sure you'd call it the third goalie because they called, and I'm not going to get the name right, so I'm not going to try. The goalie, Arturo something, they called him up last Tuesday. They already had 3 goaltenders on the roster, so the goaltender that they already had on the roster, they chose not to play and instead brought this guy up and had him play. Probably smart, because if he was still down in the minor leagues, he was probably playing on a regular basis. I didn't look it up. The announcers, or at least the preview announcers, thought that it would be a big advantage for the Preds, and I guess you can say that. There's something about knowing a goaltender, knowing their tendencies, that does provide an advantage. Sometimes playing a new goaltender is actually an advantage for the team playing the new goaltender because the other team has to figure out how they're going to play against him. There was no announcement earlier in the day about whether he was going to play or not, but the scuttlebutt was that DeSmith was injured and was not going to play. DeSmith played really well the previous night. A little annoyed at the Preds announcers' pregame coverage talking about how DeSmith wasn't a very good goaltender. Well, he won. Like I told my wife, the guy that they were playing, they didn't find on Broadway. He's an NHL goaltender. He's playing for one of the best teams in the league. He's not going to suck. Again, just like I said about DeSmith, he was not going to suck. You had to expect that he was going to be able to play at a high level. You would hope that you would be able to take advantage of maybe him not being used to the speed at the NHL level if he's playing in the minor leagues. And therefore, kind of catch him off guard. I think that Vancouver was playing a little bit more of a defensive game, and I think that really showed at the end of the game when they pulled the goaltender and they just gave up on defense and scored 2 goals in the last 3 minutes. And I think they carried that momentum and that attitude into the overtime period, and allowing them to win a minute 2 into overtime. So 3 goals in the last within 4 minutes. Very disappointing. Being a Preds fan, just an extremely bad taste in your mouth walking out of there. Really felt like the Preds had a good handle on things. I get a little annoyed with people in the crowd. I've mentioned that before. I don't think the hockey IQ is very high in any stadium. I think people, and I hate to call my father-in-law out, but I'm going to because it was one of my favorite nitpicks. I don't think I've ever said this to him. But sometimes when I watch football with him, I feel like he doesn't know what the rules of the game are. I know he does. I know he does know the rules of the game. But he's yelling at the TV, or if we're in the stadium watching a game, he's yelling at the refs like as if he doesn't know what the rules are. I mean, legitimate penalties are legitimate penalties. And somebody told me once, well, he's a homer. And ergo, he's always going to pull for his team. He's always going to support the team. He's never going to believe the team made a mistake unless it's, blatant. And okay, fine, I get that. And I get that you're going to have that in the stadium. What I really don't like is when the guy behind me is an idiot. And I say that really nicely. I try to say that really nicely because the guy sitting next to him obviously understood hockey. In fact, I thought about at one point turning around and trying to get his name and seeing if he wanted to come on my podcast. But I'm like, well, I don't really know the guy. So I don't really think I want to go down that road, although I did have to appreciate his knowledge and his educating his friend on things. And they were all, I mean, I suppose that sitting in front of somebody, you can just about hear every conversation behind you. I don't know because I've never sat in front of myself. I kind of assume that the people ahead of me can hear me most of the time because I can hear the people behind me all the time. And anyway, yeah, I even liked it. I have to give the guy props because people were screaming about a hit at one point in the game on a Nashville player, of course, and the guy's yelling, "Hey, that's legit! That's legit! He had the puck. It was a legit hit." And he's right. The thing that bothered me about the play was that, and I forget who it was, but the Nashville player skated into the ice along the left side board. It had to be so they were shooting. So it was either the first or third period. And there are 4 Canucks around him. 1 Predator, 4 Canucks. I used to play a lot of basketball. As my wife says, I used to do a lot of things. And that's true. And I wish I still could. In my heart, I am still a basketball player. I love basketball. It is my favorite team sport. I love behind that. I love cycling. Recently joined a cycling team, and at some point in time, if I can actually get my fitness in, maybe I'll get to ride with them, and maybe I'll have a new favorite team sport. But I love basketball, and one thing when I'm watching basketball that I hate is when you get one player that's got 2 or 3 people around them, and they still try to shoot the ball. It's like, you know what? There's a reason why there are other people on the ice, other people on the court. It's not a one-person game. It's a team game. So if you are skating down the ice and there are 4 Canucks around you, you could probably just about pass that puck anywhere. Just get it away from the 4 Vancouver players, and maybe the 5th Vancouver player or the goaltender plays it. But hey, maybe one of your teammates can help you out. Now, granted, if you have 4 guys around you and you're skating down, you don't know where they're at. But hey, if there are 4 around you, you're in the offensive zone. What have you got to lose? Now, the difference being if you know that you're taking the puck down for a line change and you know the people behind you may or may not be on the ice, then in that case, okay, fine. But that was not the case here. Guy kind of got breakaway, wound up down in the ice, and he got hit, and it disturbed him from the puck. I did have to laugh. I was trying not to be annoyed or pay too much attention to the people behind me, but they were rather loud. There was one case where a Predators player, and it was down on our side of the ice too, so it had to have been first or third period because they were on defense, made a hit. And the guy was like, "Oh, yeah, great hit." Well, he did not dislodge the puck from the player. The player kept going with the puck. I laugh sometimes because people think it's a big hit, and generally the force of the hit goes into the boards and it makes a loud noise. They did not hit the player or just glanced off the player, but you'll get a lot of screams and yells because there's a loud noise. And it's like, well, there was a lot of noise, but that really wasn't a hit per se. Anyway, I get a little, I'm particular about things like that. maybe more than I should be, but that's who I am. As I told my nieces, I believe words mean things, and why I couldn't be, anyway, so I don't want to go too far. I don't want this to be a really long podcast today because it was a very disappointing game last night. We thought, and at one point, the guys behind me were saying that they thought that that basically the Preds had gone to a 4 corners defense, and could have. I thought, their offense had not looked particularly good. I'll just say good. I can't come up with the term I want. In the game anyway. And so, they were kind of picking and choosing their opportunities. And at this particular point of the game, it was the third period. The Preds did have a 2-goal lead, and it basically, okay, I used to play tennis, and back when I was playing tennis in high school, a friend of mine finally noticed I'd usually beat him, but he would usually be out to a big lead, and I would play aggressively, and until I was down like 4 games, right? And so then there'd be two games left before I would lose. I wouldn't know. I don't remember my score was. If I was winning, I wouldn't change it, but I'd play fairly aggressively at the start, and then at some point I changed my game around to allow my opponent to beat themselves. It's like, okay, I'm not going to do anything real aggressive here. I'm going to make good shots. I'm going to try to put you in awkward positions and let you beat yourself. And that's how I'm going to come back and win. And it worked for me in tennis pretty well. And I think that's kind of the attitude that the Preds had. They were up by 2 goals, which meant Vancouver was going to need to score at least 2, which they did. And so, get the puck, put it back down on the ice, give them opportunities to make bad decisions, and then take advantage of it. So that seemed to be the attitude I saw, when they got the, say Vancouver iced the puck, which again, last night, the refs had to keep pulling people off the bench. They had to pull at least 3 guys back off the bench, maybe 3, maybe more. They were over there pointing at people and pointing at other people to get back on the bench, and people are arguing with the refs. And it's like, you know what? I just cannot believe that's not a bench minor. At some point in time, when the refs have to do this over and over again, they should be able to call a bench minor, because it is unsportsmanlike conduct for them to do that. They know what the rules are. The rules are, if you ice the puck, you can't make a personnel change. And yet there they are, icing the puck, making the personnel change. And in time, so I just, there we go again. And so in the end, every now and then the Vancouver would ice the puck, and the refs would call it. The crowd would cheer. I guess we were all getting tired of the fact that somehow they were able to wave stuff off. I don't know, again, how they were able to wave penalties off or icings off when they were deep inside the Vancouver defensive zone. The puck comes out, skate goes all the way down the ice, and somehow they waved it off. They wave it off as soon as it happens. I guess it went right by a Preds player that couldn't have touched it even if he'd wanted to, but yet there we go, waving it off immediately. But at the end of the game, they would call them, and so then the Preds would have face-offs down in the offensive zone, and they would take advantage of that situation. So I think they had a good strategy. The strategy kind of fell apart when it became 6-on-5, and the Preds would gain control of the puck, and then they'd try to do something cute with it. Cute with it by trying to pass it to somebody else. Well, you're outnumbered. Throw the puck up in the air, get it out of the zone, ice the puck, ice it. You know what? That stops momentum. You get to reset. Okay, you don't get to make a change, but they've got a lot of pressure on you, and just it's one way to relieve the pressure, and then you can start over. Of course, as my wife pointed out, we could have done, they could have done that and skated over and sat on the boards, and then the whole time the ref is telling people to get back on the ice, the players are getting a rest. Which is one of the things about the icing the puck is that it keeps people on the ice, longer than maybe they would prefer to stay on the ice. And so by giving them time to rest, in other sports they call timeouts. In hockey, you get one. So they try to be judicious when they use that one timeout. But there are other things that you can do, and and a popular thing to do is when you go, the initial face-off guy that goes into the circle is not going to take the face-off. His goal is to go in there and delay, get kicked out, and have the real guy come in to do the face-off, and that way the team his players get a chance to rest on the ice, but get a little bit more chance to recover from whatever output they had been doing, and that's a very frequent ploy. You could argue that it's unsportsmanlike conduct, and I guess at a certain point I'd have to agree with you, depending upon how it is they go about delaying. If they're engaging in reasonable activities, because even when they're not, even face-offs when there wasn't an icing, you see people go in early, trying to jump the drop and win the puck. That's the goal, right? And so your timing may not always be the best. So doing that when you're trying to give your players an opportunity to rest is it's hard to say that that's something they wouldn't have done anyway. But anyway, again, the Preds weren't doing that, but they could have if they had iced the puck a couple of the times that they had gotten control of it. And a tough thing to do, and I don't think they really had this opportunity, would be to slide the puck over to the goaltender so he could cover it up. And that's also okay. The goaltender can cover up the puck anytime he wants. Now, they changed the rule a couple of years ago to where if there's nobody around the goaltender and he just holds on to the puck, that he could be called with a delay of game. The idea being that the NHL wanted play to continue as much as possible. So, if the puck comes down the ice and the goaltender covers it up and there's nobody there, then that's delay of game. I think it's great because the goaltenders now kind of release the puck and get it to their guys and play continues. And it is more exciting. It's very, very nice, change of the rules there. But you can also, in those circumstances, try to get the puck to the goaltender. You see that sometimes, not when there's, when it's not as crowded and the guy can see it coming. You don't want to surprise your goaltender by shooting the puck at your own goaltender. So it's it's a little bit of a risky play, but it's another way to try to stop the momentum of the other team. In that case, they would get a chance to change because it wouldn't be icing; it would just be a normal stoppage of play. But the Vancouver obviously have, their guys. They're big, whatever. They're big, but they're skaters. They're really quick, and they were able to get around and move and be in position to put the Preds in awkward situations once they decided to start playing offense, serious offense. Anyway, it was a little frustrating. In the 4-on-4 circumstance, because the Preds kind of acted like they were shorthanded. The Vancouver was able to come down into the offensive zone and pass the puck around, and it looked like we were shorthanded the whole time. But it was even strength, and it's even strength. Match up, get on your guy. I know they're bigger, but they can't just knock you down if they have the puck. Now, of course, it's Vancouver in the NHL, so maybe they can, but. I thought that the way that particular special teams situation was poor, and I think again the Preds last night had if they had worked on special teams between Sunday and Tuesday, when were they going to do it? Monday, I guess. I have my days wrong. Saturday and Monday. Sorry. Friday and Sunday. Sorry, my days are between Friday and Sunday. The late Friday game and the earlier Sunday game. Of course, the Colorado game started at 12:30 Mountain Time. They really had the early game on Sunday. We'll get to all of that in a minute, but 4 o'clock. I was indifferent to it, but when it went to overtime, I'm like, well, thank goodness. We were at the Preds game a couple of years ago. I think the first year we were out here, and they went to the playoffs, and I think there was a triple overtime. And it was like midnight, and it's just at that point, it's like, would somebody just please score? I just want to go home. Fortunately, it was the Preds, but triple overtime in the playoffs. In the regular season, if the game is tied at the end of regulation, they have a 5-minute 3-on-3 situation Penalties do carry over. If there's a penalty that carries over, or if there's a permanent penalty that happens in that overtime period, it becomes a 4-on-3 or a 5-on-3, depending on how many penalties. 3 is the minimum number of skaters that they will have on the ice. So it could be 4-on-3, 5-on-3 if penalties happen or get carried over into the overtime period. And then after the 5 minutes, they go to a shootout with 3 skaters aside, and then if it's tied at that point, then they keep one more skater for each team until there's somebody that has won at the end of all of that. Now, and the home team gets to pick whether they go first or second initially, and then they're always going second or they're always going first in the different rounds. I don't think in the NHL you can that a player can take multiple shots in the shootout. If it went long enough, I guess they would have to. Not exactly sure what the rules are. Interesting, watching the Caps play yesterday. Oshie plays for the Caps now, and famously in the Olympics, they don't have that rule. And the U.S. team went to a shootout in the Olympics, and Oshie, was it T.J. Oshie? I think it's T.J. Oshie. Went up every time. He was the only person doing the shootout for the U.S. team, and we won. He was amazing. He plays for the Caps now. Again, get to that in a couple of minutes, but that's kind of the format. But when it comes to the playoffs, normally it's an 18-minute intermission between in the regular regulation time. So between the first and second and the second and the third, it's an 18-minute intermission. If they go to overtime, there's a 15-minute intermission, and then they play a full period. So another 20 minutes, and then if they're still tied, another 15-minute intermission, and then another 20-minute period until somebody wins. And like I said, it was third overtime in one of the Preds games that the Preds finally won. I think of the 2020 season, 2020-2021 season. I think that's right. It gets to be a little long when your game starts at 7:00 at night, and normally it'd be over at 9:30, 10, and then 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? But the 20 minutes is not just 20 minutes; it's 20 minutes in stoppages, so it gets to be kind of long. When you go to overtime, I guess thankfully we didn't go that long last night. Unthankfully, it was Vancouver that scored, enabling that to happen. So, okay. So your playoff update. Let's go ahead and start talking about the rest of the teams, because it's my show and that's what I want to do. And I know you guys want me to do that too. Anyway, what we have is over the weekend. I don't remember which days this happened. I could look it up, but I don't think at this point anybody really cares what day it happened. But over the weekend, the Rangers won 4-2 in Washington, sweeping the Capitals 4-0. So that series is over. I thought the Rangers would win in 5 or 6. I think I'd said 5. It's 4. At least I was close. I didn't really watch much of those games. I was watching a little bit of one yesterday, and Ovechkin, I guess he had been involved, but it didn't sound like he was really contributing the way everybody thought he would. And, I think that's, a circumstance kind of like where the Preds are. The Forsberg line is the best line, and if you can focus on that and you can shut them down, however you do that, then, who is going to step up? And I think that's one of the problems that they have. Again, on defense, Roman Josi is a really good defensive defenseman. You can have very good defensive defensemen. You can have really good offensive defensemen. Or you can, I think it's rare to have somebody that's really good at both. Drew Doughty kind of is, but he's really a little bit more offensive than defensive. Alex Martinez, that used to play for the Kings, plays for Vegas now. Definitely more of a offensive defenseman. However, they're also really good at defense, very solid. But I know it's one thing I started wondering about last night in the Preds game when the Vancouver scored. They got the first goal, scored somewhat early. If Stastny was out, and I forget who they brought up to. They'd already brought the player up because I think what I had heard was in Milwaukee they weren't playing, so this particular defenseman they wanted to keep active, and so he had been practicing with the team over the last week. When Stastny went down the other night, he filled in last night, and I think maybe the timing of the defenseman and the awareness of where people were was probably a little shallow at the start of the game, and Vancouver was able to take advantage of that, unfortunately, and got the first goal. But that's how, that's kind of how it goes. These Forsberg and Josi can't play the entire game. We did have another really good defenseman last year, and they just let him go last year, and I'm just struggling to remember the name. Sorry, should look this stuff up beforehand, but I kind of really don't know what I'm going to talk about till I get in here. I know I'm going to talk about the game, and who knows where it's going to take me. But that's where I got. That's where I wound up. So the Rangers have swept the Capitals in 4, so they are waiting. They are waiting on the Rangers are in the Metropolitan, so they will play the winner of the Metropolitan 2, Metropolitan 3 matchup, which is the Carolina Islander matchup. If you remember, Carolina was actually number 2 in the Eastern Conference, but they are the 3rd team in the Eastern Conference because they are the 2nd team in the Metropolitan. Carolina lost to the Islanders the other night in double overtime, and I think that was Saturday night. I thought there was a couple of Hurricane fans at the game last night wearing the 3 flag jerseys, which are just beautiful. I think that's really, really neat. Carolina has really embraced the hurricane theme. I've been to a game in Raleigh. I've said before, I have a little sign, Carolina Stanley Cup. My family used to live in Raleigh, and kind of fun when they got a team that don't play against the Kings that much, so it's easy. I can easily pull for Carolina. They were really, really nice, traveling around, trying to go to all the different hockey forums that they could. Very nice people. Had a very nice conversation with them. Unfortunately, Carolina did lose in double overtime, 3-2 in Game 4. So they're back in Carolina tomorrow, Tuesday. And if there is a Game 6, it will be Thursday in New York. I picked the Islanders in 6. I thought the Islanders were coming in hot, and that's not going to happen at this point. But doesn't mean Islanders aren't going to win. It didn't say I was pulling for them. I just predicted it. I just thought the Islanders were playing really well. But anyway, the Rangers are now waiting. Now they get to rest. There's some argument on whether resting a long time between series is good or bad. Some rest is good, a lot of rest, not always. You can kind of get out of playoff mode mentally if you sit too long. But they are waiting on the winner of Carolina, New York Islanders. And again, their next game is tomorrow night. That will be Game 5. Carolina's up 3-1. In the other matchup, one of the other matchups in the East, Florida and Tampa Bay. And over the weekend, Tampa Bay got a win. Florida had been up 3-0, just like Carolina and just like the Rangers. And the Rangers swept, and Florida and Carolina all lost to their opponents. So Tampa Bay won 6-3 over the weekend. Florida is still up 3-1. They play tonight in Florida, in Sunrise, Florida, right? Sunrise, Florida. Which I think that's somewhere down near Miami. I always forget where Florida is at. I always confuse them with with some other team. I always think they're somewhere around Gainesville, but they're not there. They're down around they're near the Cape Canaveral and the Space Coast. They're down in the Space Coast. But anyway, so Game 5 of the Florida-Tampa Bay series is tonight. Florida is winning 3-1. I did pick Florida in 7, but Game 5 is tonight. Game 6, if needed, would be Wednesday. That is the Florida was first in the Atlantic, and they would play the other matchup, the Boston-Toronto, and over the weekend, Boston won in Toronto 3-1, which made their series 3-1. So Boston is winning that series 3-1. They play tomorrow night. And then Thursday if they need a Game 6. So it feels like the Eastern Conference is going to wrap themselves up, and the next round will be starting, I guess, if everything gets wrapped up tonight, tomorrow night. If it does, not saying it will, it could start this weekend. Okay, so that's the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference, we'll start with Dallas, and Dallas managed to win over the weekend in Las Vegas. They won 3-2, so they are now, Vegas is up 2-1, so Dallas is down 1-2, but at least they won a game. They lost both games in Dallas. They have the fourth game in Las Vegas tonight. Game 5 will be Wednesday, and if Game 6 is needed, that's Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the Dallas-Vegas. Tonight will be in Las Vegas. Wednesday will be back in Dallas, and then Friday in Las Vegas. We'll see how that works out. I had Dallas in 5 or 6, and it's not going to be 5 at this point. I think I warned you guys. I'm very bad at this. Vancouver Nashville is 3-1. Their next game is tomorrow night, and then if Game 6 is needed, would be Friday. So Game 6 on Friday there. Game 6 for Dallas Vegas would be also on Friday. And then the number 3 Winnipeg is 1-2 as Colorado managed to win 2 games, the last 2 games. So Colorado is up 2-1. Very, very surprising. Or 1-2. Colorado is up 2-1. They won 6-2 over the weekend. They won 5-2 in Winnipeg. In the second game in Winnipeg, remember the Jets won the first game 7-6. I thought that was going to be the series most likely to be a sweep. I guess I should have picked the Rangers, but historically, as I was talking to somebody over the weekend who was a Bruins fan, and the Boston had a really great team last year and didn't go anywhere with it. Being the President's Cup winner, the team with the most points in the NHL, is usually not a sign of success in the playoffs. It's very strange. But that's how it works out there. Very few President Cup winners. Now, the President's Cup itself has only been around since, I think, in the 1980s. in the playoff formula. An upcoming segment on the history of the NHL divisions and trophies, trying to figure out how to make that interesting. I think I've got a handle on it. And I might have more time on my hands after tomorrow night to do all that. But anyway, Colorado is up 2-1 over Winnipeg. They played last night. They play again on Tuesday, and then game 4 will be Tuesday. And that doesn't seem right, does it? I guess that's right. They've only played 3 games. Is that right? Oh, no, Colorado is up 3-1. That's what it is. That's right. Colorado is up 3-1. I didn't update my notes correctly. But Colorado is up 3-1. So they will be going back to Winnipeg on Tuesday and then Thursday. And then finally, number 5, Edmonton, number 2 in the Pacific Division, play number 3, Pacific Division, Los Angeles. So Dallas, the winner of the Dallas-Vegas matchup, Dallas being the central number 1, will play the winner of the Winnipeg-Colorado series, Central 2 and 3. And then Vancouver Pacific, the winner of the Vancouver-Nashville series, will play the winner of the Edmonton-LA series. Edmonton-LA is 3-1. The Oilers won 1-0 last night after winning 6-1 in the previous game. The Kings did take one in Edmonton, but didn't win one in LA. Similar, their progression is looking very similar to the Predators, unfortunately. But anyway, as I said, I do have a Rangers hat. Okay, so that's your overall playoff update. So talking specifically about the Preds here, last night was the first time this season in 3 previous games in Nashville against Vancouver, 2 in the regular season, that the Predators won the second period at home. Had not won the second period, so I thought that was amazing. I could not wait for the second period to be over. I kept trying not to say anything about that during the period, not wanting to jinx it. But they did win the second period at home. It is also the first time the Predators scored more than 2 goals at home against Vancouver, and it's the first time they had a lead over Vancouver in Nashville. Their history with Vancouver this season has not been very good. In the regular season, they lost all 3. 2 in Nashville, 1 in Vancouver. Overall, they do have a win in the playoffs in Vancouver, so they are now headed back to Vancouver, and for tomorrow night, they have good memories of the last game in Vancouver. I hope they can leverage that a little bit more. Overall this season, when they lose 2 periods like they did last night, they are 1-11. Of course, last night they went to overtime, so they lost 2. They did win 1 and they tied 1. When they only win 1 at home, they're 6-8. 6-9 now, I guess. And then when they tie 1, they're 12-11. None of those numbers look particularly great, and neither did the outcome of last night. Coming up tomorrow night, the third away game, and against the Canucks in Vancouver this season, they did lose the only regular season game. They did not get the first goal in that game, but they did win the first period 2-1. Vancouver went on to score 2 goals in both the second and the third. The second goal in the third period was an empty netter, and I noted this. Lankinen was in goal. I don't know that really mattered on the outcome. But one thing that was interesting when I went back and was reviewing it, but Anthony Beauvillier had 2 assists in that game. Anthony Beauvillier at the time was playing for Vancouver. He now plays for Nashville. He was traded to Chicago at the end of November, I think November 29th, for a 5th round 2024 pick. And then at the trade deadline, the day before, March 7th, he was traded to Nashville for a 5th round 2024 pick. There you go. He's playing really well for the Preds, a good pickup for them. And he had 2 assists back in Vancouver against the Preds back in November. Interesting. Okay. Also in Vancouver against the Canucks, they have won the first period in all of the games, but they lost 2 of them. They lost the third period in the first 2 games, both of which they lost. In the first game, they lost they lost the second period as well. In the first game in the playoffs, they tied the second period. And then in the playoff game, the last game in Vancouver, they did win all 3 periods, which it's hard to lose when you win all 3 periods. And so some overall statistics about the Predators on the road. They do have a 16-goal scoring advantage in the first period. In the second and third periods, they are outscored by 1 and 3. But very close, but a 16-goal scoring advantage on the road. Most likely when the Preds win, the winning goal is in the third period, 42%. Overall, on the road, for either team, it's 41% in the third, so it's not dramatically different right around it. Overall, on the road and away, it's 33% in the third period. So it's a little bit of an anomaly that on the road, a higher percentage of the winning goals are in the third period. But for the opponents, it turns out it is 65%, and it's the second period. So on the road, 65% of the games when the Preds lost, the opponents got the winning goal in the second period. Away, overall, it's 32%. So that's a huge difference when the opponents win, 65% versus 32% overall, and then 37% away overall, and then overall 37%. So for home and away, 37% of the time, the winning goal is in the second, but on the road, when the opponents win, it's 65% of the time. Big difference. Big number there. On the road, the Preds are 25-15-3 this season. That is good. 10-2-2, also very good since February 16th. They are 1-1 in the playoffs on the road. And they definitely need a win. A little bit different here on the tying. At home, tying each period is 37% for the first and second, and then 27% in the third. On the road, it's not so much. 34% in the first period, which is similar, 22% in the second, and 29% in the third. So the percentage of time there's a tie in the second period drops dramatically from home to away. And then for scoring, it's tying each period, so the scoring. So, and then after that, the highest percentage in the first period is to be outscored by 29% for the Preds and 27% for the opposition. So very similar. And then but the difference there between the Preds and the opponents is a 15% chance, or 15% of the time they outscore the opponents by 2. I think it was like 5% it was a big difference by 2 in the first period. The second period is about the same as the first. Preds outscoring 27%, opposition 24%. Which is in line with 22% being a tie, so very evenly split. And then by 2, either the opponents or Preds 10%. So the scoring seems very even in the second period. They are overall they've been outscored on the road in the second period by 1. So things look to be very evenly distributed. And then the third period again, outscored by 1. 20% the Preds do it, 24% the opposition. And then by 2, 15% for the Preds and 10% for the opposition. And the Preds are overall been outscored by 3 in the third period. So all of that, the 29%, a tie in the third would be the highest percentage of all of that, which kind of makes sense. But it's looks fairly evenly distributed. No real standouts in those percentages on whether the periods are a tie or somebody outscores by 1 or 2. It's looking very even. The one standout being in the first period, the Preds outscoring by 2, significantly higher than being outscored by 2. It makes a lot of sense since they have a 16-goal scoring advantage in the first period on the road. Again, back to the first goal, the Preds, if they get it on the road, are 26-1, and if the opponents get it, 5-9-2. They got the first goal in both playoff games, but not in the regular season. And then, of course, in Vancouver, they were 1-1. So not a big determinant. They really don't feel like it was a big determinant last night. The Vancouver got the first goal. The Preds got a goal and tied up the first period, and I think getting the first goal at that point was irrelevant to the game. So anyway, that's the numbers. That's how things look. Or have looked. Again, this is not prognostication. This is just statistics and looking at how things go. I'm going to call out, I was playing golf with a guy yesterday who works over here at Vancouver University. I think he's got his doctorate in something, but his background and my background are kind of similar. A really nice guy. Enjoyed playing golf with him, and happened to mention him about this podcast, and the entire thing he's going to talk about, how the statistics say this, and his statistics say this, and his statistics say that, and it's like, yeah, the statistics might say that, but you still got to take the golf shot, and the same here, all these statistics show proclivity tendencies, right? But in the end, you've got to play the game and play it to whatever level you're going to play, and hopefully you come out of it with a win. So the Preds are heading back to Vancouver tomorrow night for Game 5. Vancouver is leading 3-1. So Nashville is going to have to put it all on the line tomorrow night, and I think it's going to be a fun game. I think the Preds are going to be able to come out of that game with a win. And then we'll see what happens on Friday here back in Nashville. So that is your latest update here on Predators Proclivity. Thanks for listening. You have been listening to Predators Proclivity. I'm Preston Proctor. Have a great day, everybody.